We're going to do massage techniques for the back of the forearm, starting above the elbow and going all the way down to the wrist area. So treating the back side of the forearm muscles, we'll use a general tool, going back to the rolling pin. And you can use also a can of vegetables if you prefer, and I'll show that a little bit later on. So I'm moving back and forth. I can apply my other hand to add more pressure. Now when you get to the wrist, you got to be a bit careful because now you're getting to bony prominence, so lighter pressure is preferred. But as you move closer towards the elbow, that's where the muscle bellies are, so you can apply more pressure. And now I'm going to use a softball. So if you don't have a rolling pin, you can use a Theraball, a softball, a tennis ball. You can move up and down and side to side, leaving the ball in that one position. Now in terms of the can of vegetable, just moving up and down, and you can leave it stationary and then just rotate your forearm over the can or the rolling pin. And now we'll go and use tools such as the ball and with my hand on the back of the forearm. So we're going to use a softball and then a tennis ball and some other tools for the back of the forearm. So with a softball, you do some circular motion starting at its attachment. So it's on the outside of the elbow called the lateral epicondyle, as well as just a bit above that for brachioradialis. So I'm doing some circular motion, and they can move up and down all the way to the wrist. Now again, be careful because at the wrist it becomes very bony, and then there's a connective tissue that binds the wrist down. So at this point, you don't want to go too deep with your pressure. Now we get into doing tennis ball, which is narrower. Working on its attachment, getting to the muscle belly, moving side to side, up and down, to the wrist area. Again, lighter pressure at the wrist. And in this position, you can use the felt of the tennis ball to create some traction. Hold down the forearm muscles and then bend your wrist forward, as well as bending your fingers. And then you can also use your palm to do the same action. And then you can also use your palm to add compression onto the forearm muscles. Brachioradialis, as was mentioned in the anatomy, is on top of the outside bone called the radius. It forms the landmark between the front and the back of the forearm, located here. So you can use your palm, therapy ball directly on it. So I'm compressing on the brachioradialis and rotating my forearm back and forth. So you can see how I'm mobilizing the muscle. It's a free border muscle that you could pinch it, compress it, or even use a pincer grasp using your fingers right in that area. you could get into using, if you have a small dumbbell, compressing directly on the muscles, moving back and forth to add weight to your pressure. And same thing, you could apply the pressure, leave it stationary, and then bend the wrist and the fingers, and then light pressure coming back. Apply the pressure when you're bending the wrist and fingers, and light pressure on the way back. Then, with a tennis ball, if you find that you don't have enough arm strength, then you can use the tennis ball on the hammer, apply the pressure, and then you could rotate so that your palm is facing the ceiling. So you're working the muscles cross fiber. This also will help with brachioradialis right here. Then we get into doing the blunt side of the spoon, starting around the lateral epicondyle and a little bit higher for brachioradialis. So right there, that's outside of the elbow. Moving up and down, side to side. All the way along, and here's brachioradialis. So you can apply that pressure on the back side of brachioradialis. And the wedge shape, you could use of a knife to get right in between the muscle fibers, moving up and down. And then you can rotate your forearm so it could go side to side. Then as you get closer to the wrist, lighter pressure because it becomes tendinous, and there's also bony prominence there that are superficial to the skin. Use the wooden spatula as well for the wedge shape, and then rotate. So it generally gets sticky in around the outside of the elbow and just below on the forearm. So you can position the wedge shape right on that area, moving up and down and side to side. And then with the boomerang, again, you take the skin with you, about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. And these are the techniques for the back side of the forearm muscles.